Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of CNG Performance. We're taking this 2004 Chevy Silverado that we bought back in 2020 and we're going to do an EGR delete on it.
Along with a couple other hop-ups for, fuel mileage.
So we just happened to find a really good deal. This thing barely had over 200,000 miles on it, really good condition. So we bought it for like
next to nothing.
But it's never had any modifications to actually help open it up a little bit to give it a little bit more power. So we're going to do an EGR delete.
MBRP downpipe. We're going to open up the throat of the Y bridge, partially because I broke the original one. And then when all that's said and done, we're going to go pick up that monster right there.
When I first met my husband, he had this 2005 3/4 ton Duramax that he bought used back in 2008. This would not only be the truck I would learn how to tow with, but also how to drag race. So when we found a 2004 model that was basically its twin, we just could not resist adding it to our family.
No sooner than we got the hood open on the truck, Cassandra went straight to work removing the stock air intake system, unplugging sensor leads, and getting the wiring harness moved over out of the way. Meanwhile, I had the joy of squeezing my hands between the engine and the firewall so I could remove the passenger side turbo up pipe and then remove the downpipe coming from the turbo. We also needed to drain some of the coolant from the radiator since the EGR system uses coolant to remove excess heat from the exhaust gas as it passes through the EGR log.
Day 2 of the diesel debacle. Yesterday was actually a pretty successful day. We got a lot done. Got the turbo downpipe off, got coolant drained, EGR log was out of the way, passenger side up pipe came off. We changed the fuel rail inlet fittings for the PPE ported rail fittings. Just about to the point of putting in the PPE race valve for the FPRP replacement. And then we hit a snag, but should I say, I hit a snag because I was touching it when it happened. I was getting ready to put on our brand new EGR delete crossover tube. And that's when we discovered we just touched it the wrong way, or I don't know, you draw up your own conclusions, but here's the lowdown. The factory Y bridge inlet port got a nice crack in it right there in that bolt receiver. See that? It's pretty, huh? And that kind of stops everything. That stops us completing the install of the EGR delete tube. That stops making the truck run. But we still have a lot of parts laying around. The heater replacement tube for where the EGR log used to live. We still got the race plug sitting here. So I mean, we still have stuff to bolt to the truck. And last but not least, we get to find out how to unbolt that Y bridge. We ordered another one from Dirty Hooker Diesel. Hopefully it'll be here this week. That way Cassandra can see how this one comes out. She'll know everything to do to put the new one in. And then it'll just be EGR delete tube, charge pipe from the intercooler. She'll put the mouthpiece back on the turbo. And then of course her inlet tube, her air box, mass airflow sensor, all those things.
This one on this side is
Still kind of
being difficult.
taut.
Well, I think it's just the angle.
Oh. That's 2, right?
That's 2.
2 out of 8.
I have a feeling I'm gonna need to move this bracket right here because it's on top of the Y bridge.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that
Is it a 12?
Yeah, it's gonna be that 12.
Put that over there somewhere.
Look at you winning. Shop dog? Shop dog's doing good? Shop dog's good. I'm coming. You're sending tools to Narnia, so.
This one,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to need a longer extension because I'm going to have to kind of go through here
Through all that.
to get to it. And then that one and that one obviously are going to be
A little more involved.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You know, I think you may have been right. We may have to loosen that just a little bit more.
I think the one on the driver's side.
And that tube needs to move again. So bend that back. And then, I don't know. Yeah, it may need
Just a little bit.
just a hair. I see you, and I'm telling your mother. Okay, you may have to work the impact and the camera.
Okay.
So pull it back to you. Gently. Pull it back to you. Okay. There. Just give it a bump or two. Another one. Another one. There,
Huh?
Go ahead. Okay. And that one's at the end of that stud. So that means if I wiggle my nose like Samantha and Bewitched.
And I think it's got to come up because if you look at the 2 front studs,
Yeah, it's got to come almost straight up, which is going to be a challenge
it's
because
not a lot of room.
everything's in the way. So close is killing me. Hey,
Yay.
look at here. Now I just gotta get it past everything else that's in the way. No big deal. Haha!
Ugh, look at all that nastiness.
You can have that.
Ugh, look at that. It's so disgusting in there. This is why we're replacing it right here.
On top of other reasons. But
On
yes.
top of other reasons, but
This is a stock 2004.5 LLY Duramax Y bridge. Cast aluminum. It's not a bad piece, but if GM engineers, if they'd actually taken the time to weld the elbow instead of having 2 O-rings and basically a slip fit. As soon as this elbow wiggles a little bit, and a lot of you guys who are in the Duramax world may already know this, these 2 rubber O-rings can split and then you automatically have a boost leak here. So this is actually a weak link. Plus, you got a square peg for a round hole. The piece that we just ordered from Thoroughbred Diesel this morning is all one piece. It's supposed to be lighter, which at this point it's an 8,000 pound truck. I'm not really concerned with weight. It's more function and form because if you look inside, you'll actually see, and we'll show you the new piece when we get it. When the air comes in through the elbow, it has to make a sharp 90-degree turn past this ledge right here, and the floor of this Y pipe is actually flat. Anybody who's ever studied engineering or physics knows that air doesn't like to make sharp turns when it's in high velocity state. Fortunately, the piece that we got from Thoroughbred, it's nice and ported, it's open, and as soon as we get it here in the mail, we'll show it to you guys. And you'll see how much of a flow difference between this stock cast Y piece and the Y bridge from Thoroughbred Diesel. So we're just about wrapped up with this. We're going to tie up a few more things, plug up some holes, get the downpipe bolted in for good, I hope. Lord knows this thing's going to fight us. And then we'll pick back up whenever we get the parts in from Thoroughbred Diesel. So we'll see you guys then. So here's what we pulled off. This giant EGR cooler with the charge piping crossover. Anybody who's ever done this at home knows that this is a very inefficient system. It works for emissions purposes, but it's not that great for performance. Along with that, we took out the stock downpipe, which, if you can see this, it actually sandwiches down to about 1 3/4 inches square on its way down by the firewall. You get the stock Y bridge, which there's no positive securing method to keep the elbow into the bridge itself. Of course, along with that, because of the cooling exhaust gases, it creates this nasty gunky build up inside the Y bridge. Our solution was to try to bolt this to the Y bridge, but of course since we broke the stock casting, that changed the game plan completely. So instead, someone made an order to Thoroughbred Diesel, where we convinced them to have HSP Diesel fabricate and send us this lovely piece of machinery. Check this out. It's a one-piece machined Y bridge. It's got nice smooth transitional bends in it. Everything's very, very wide open and smooth. Plus it's got a larger opening. I didn't actually measure it, but what would you say? That's like a 3-inch hole? It's huge. Plus if you look at the backside of it, the real heartbreak of it is trying to get the 2 rear bolts out of the bottom of the factory Y bridge. They were kind enough to machine a bevel into the back wall of the new one. It makes these bottom bolt holes a lot more accessible. When you combine that with their new Y bridge elbow pipe that's also equally as massive, plus it utilizes 2 bolts and an O-ring to secure it to the Y bridge, so there's no chance of a boost leak ever. PPE Diesel sent us this giant 3-inch downpipe, complete with heat wrap. That creates a little bit of a packaging problem when you try to fit this in with the new LBZ up pipe. So we made a call with Merchant Automotive, and they sent us over one of their Duramax driver's side dipstick tubes for the transmission. So that way we can create a little more real estate for this to live in. This will help us breathe on the low end of the power curve. All in all, should equal one Duramax diesel that runs a whole lot better for the boss lady.
Got it.
So about 6 or 7 months have gone by since we did all the work on Cassandra's Duramax, and shortly after that we started flushing fluids. As luck would have it, anytime that you start to perform maintenance, you're bound to find little gremlins that sneak out over time. Case in point. So much like my truck, about I guess it'd be close to 3 years ago now, I started noticing that everywhere I parked the truck, there'd be this nice cool little puddle on the ground, almost right below where the driver's side battery was. Turns out it was the output shaft seal on the steering box itself. A lot of guys will go with redhead. I have heard great things about redhead steering gears, but based on my experience with Ryan at Blue Top, I'm going to go back and give him a call, tell him what I need, and he's going to hook me up and treat me right and give me a good price for it, and he did. So Cassandra put the order through, and even though he's located, I think, in South Dakota, and we're down here in Texas, she ordered it on, I believe, a Monday, and Friday morning it was sitting on her doorstep. So he's got really good shipping time, really good turnaround time if you send your box to him to get rebuilt. Because matter of fact, I took the box off of my truck that came on my truck, mailed it to him on a Tuesday, and I had it back the following Monday. He even came into work on a Saturday to crank out a few orders. Mine just happened to be one of them. I can't say enough about him. He's got a great work reputation. He's got a great team that he works with up there. They deliver a great product. We're going to get this box yanked off. We're going to get the Blue Top box bolted on and hopefully solve that little problem altogether. Ryan has got you taken care of. He's got all the instructions, all the information you'll need. They wrap the box itself in a plastic bag to keep any dirt and contaminants and debris out of it. They got the bag itself zip tied shut with another tag or two of instructions on it. It even tells you procedures for flushing and bleeding. I mean, these guys don't want you to do anything wrong. They don't want you to have any problems. They tell you that it's shipped on center. So these guys do everything they can to literally give you a bolt-on and go combination. So while these guys do go above and beyond to make sure you don't have any problems with your installation, it's still a good idea to go ahead and have your vehicle aligned after you do the install, just to be safe. Just a second ago we were talking about that paint mark that they leave on the steering shaft for you. So here's the indicator that they put on the box itself in the adjuster nut. And then when you remove this protective collar off of the input shaft, you can see how they paint over that as well to line up that dot so you can tell that you're on center. So here in just a minute we're going to get the nose of the truck up in the air, get her on jack stands, and start taking her apart. 15 millimeters will remove front differential protectors. 3/4, I think, is what I used to remove the steering stabilizer from the drag link. And then I believe it's either
3/4 or 13/16 to remove the nut for the idler arm off of the drag link. You'll do the same for the castle nut on the pitman arm once you remove the cotter pin from it, and then we'll take your favorite ball joint separator fork and you'll end up going in from the side through the wheel well. As a matter of fact, I'll take you and show you, and you'll shove it right over the top of the sway bar, and you'll make contact with the idler arm on this side and the pitman arm on the other side. Give it a few quick smacks with your favorite purse and it'll fall right off, or it should. Once the drag link is down out of the way, there's 3 7/8 bolts on the driver's side of the frame rail that hold the steering box to the frame of the truck, and the box falls right out in your hands, and this is what you end up with. So here's our steering box, and I know it's kind of a greasy, grimy mess. You can't really tell what's what, but our leak was coming out right above the pitman arm. Now that it's out, I have to rob that nut to secure our new pitman arm to our new box, because it does not come with one. So we'll zap that up on there with an impact, try to keep the pitman arm as parallel with the input shaft for the steering column as possible, because if you remember from earlier, these things are shipped on center. And then we'll just reverse order all the things we did to take the old box off to put the new one on. We'll go through the instructions on how to bleed fluid through it. I know there's a step in there where you have to disable the ignition system, crank the motor, and turn the wheel to pump fluid through it very slowly. So about another 1.5 to 2 hours and the truck should be ready to hit the road again.
After finishing up the steering box, I decided to change up the lighting scheme in my truck. So I replaced all the harsh lighting with a softer purple.
Even with all the upgrades we had made, I still felt the truck was missing something. So I reached out to my good friend Danny James to help fabricate a one-off headache rack with a strong set of bed rails as a surprise for Cassandra. The rack featured a water knifed silhouette of the J model C-130 she'd been flying on and instructing on for years. Once Danny burned in the last weld, we took it straight over to Hicks Off-Road to be sandblasted and powder coated. Man, today just keeps getting better. So Cody Hicks called me a little more than an hour ago, and he was kind enough to inform me that the headache rack and the bed rails were done. So I'm on my way now to go pick those up, and we're gonna just kind of set it on the truck, clamp it down just so it doesn't fly off in the wind, get it to the house, and then set it down for good, lock it down, throw the toolbox on it, and then wait for Cass to show up, get a look at it. It's gonna flip over this, it's gonna be amazing. Check this out. These guys hooked it up. This powder coating is incredible. Paper smooth. It's just the right tone, just the right color. I mean, I couldn't have asked for better. They literally knocked it out of the park on this one. It's got just that little bit of reflective to it, just like we wanted. So if you ever find yourself in Wichita Falls and you need powder coating done, check out Hicks Off-Road. They do a killer job, man.
Since the EGR delete, the truck has more power, runs cooler, and we've noticed a slight increase in fuel mileage. We are enjoying the softer lighting on the inside, especially when driving at night. My new bed rails and headache rack are a beautiful touch that showcase my profession and will serve a purpose when needed. And finally, replacing the steering box has obviously cured our leak, but also gives us the confidence to go bring home a new to us 37-foot camper.
Well, folks, needless to say, there it is, and it handles about like you think it would. You can tell it's there. You know, Cass and I, we've had our fair share of bumper pull experiences, but you know, even for me, this is a first. And I mean, it's not unmanageable. So for any of you guys out there watching this, if you're thinking about getting a fifth wheel, just make sure you have enough tow vehicle, and then go get it. And this is a 17, 18-year-old truck now, and it's doing just fine. So we're gonna drag
drag this thing to the house. Well, sorry. She's going to drag this thing to the house. And thanks for watching. Tune in next time to see what else we happen to get ourselves into.